Budgeting naysayers, you're going to have your cake today. Does budgeting actually work? Does it help you manage your expenses? You're going to be surprised by that answer. I've got that and more coming up. My name's Mike Bernard. I'm the host of The Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. Does budgeting actually help? Does budgeting help you manage or limit your spending? I would say yes. I would say yes based on what I've seen. However, recent data from Irrational Labs, actually one of the new up-and-coming rising stars at Korhorn Financial Group, Ben Bullgreen, just shared this data with me. You're actually going to be able to see Ben on an upcoming talk show, The Wise Money Show, airing early in August, talking about Medicare and Medicare surprises. So make sure you tune into that. But he shared this article, this study about where they've surveyed randomized 9,000 people to see if budgeting actually works. Does budgeting help you limit and manage your spending? Check this out. So they basically broke up these 9,000 people into just a control group. Okay, so just watching their behavior without a lot of constraints or additives, and then one number budgeting. Okay, so just how much did you spend, and then categorically budgeting, okay? When that's budgeting the way we all think of, okay, I expect and I'm planning to spend this much going out to eat, this much at the grocery store, this much shopping, this much on my mortgage, and then comparing your actual spending to those numbers. So what do you think between just the control group, the one number, here's total, how much you spent, or the category, and kind of focusing on that? Do you think the folks that traditionally budgeted, the way we would explain it, in those categories, do you think they did a better job managing their expenses than the control group or even the one number total budget folks? They didn't. They didn't, guys. Take a look at that data. There was no significant difference. In fact, if you look even further, in many cases, the folks that categorically kind of broke out their budget spent more. Budgeting has failed. Budgeters generally overspent the amount they budgeted. So not only did they spend more than the control group, they tended to overspend what they budgeted by 1.3 to 1.4 times what they intended. Willpower, it's a hard thing. That's a hard thing. We did not see evidence that budgeters reduced their spending relative to historic spending levels. We did not see spending differences by condition when we examined only the most frequently budgeted spending categories. You know what they are. They're those main variable expenses, food and groceries, shopping, those sorts of things. That's what we all wish we had better restraint, I guess, it would be the better term. Self-control in those areas. Study didn't find that. And then even after all the analysis, we found that spending in a budgeted category area was about $30 higher than folks that didn't have a categorized budget. That is shocking. So how can you reconcile this? If you reconcile this data that you can't really argue with, it is objective. Hey, yep, budgeting doesn't appear in and of itself to limit or help someone control their spending or spend less, versus 20 years of experience compounded here from the many CFPs and financial professionals on my team, where, hey, those that have honed the skill of budgeting have an overall, they spend less, they have a stronger financial position. How do you reconcile those? Budgeting alone doesn't work. Budgeting alone doesn't work. I've actually done videos on that before. Typically, pure budgeting just shows, all right, here's how much income you have. Let's just spread that out into different categories. And as long as you spend around that much, then you'll have allocated all of your income. Problem is, never in that budgeting process do you actually go out and define what your financial goals are and put first things first in, as Stephen Covey talks about in his work, which I'm an enormous fan of and certainly applies to personal finance. Okay, what do you want to do? We all have our lifestyle and we want to live in certain neighborhoods, and we want to go out to eat at certain restaurants. We have our own tastes, right? But you also have longer term, bigger picture financial goals, and one isn't more more important than the other. They need to be in balance. So first things first is, okay, what are those longer term goals? And mathematically calculate how much do you need to be carving out in your budget every single month or on an ongoing basis to make sure you're on track with those goals. Say yes to that stuff first. Say yes to that stuff first, and then have everything else fit in, all of your other lifestyle and those taste buds and everything else fit in around that. That's the proper way to budget, number one. So traditional budgeting sets you up to fail, in my opinion, because in and of itself, just budgeting is not going to help you limit your spending in certain areas. A compelling why, the right reason, the right yes will help you say no to the things that you don't really need. So start with those yeses. Again, going back to Stephen Covey, he's going to tell you, you've got a finite amount of resources, put the rocks in first, then put the pebbles, then the sand, then the water, it will all fit, okay? So what are those priorities in your financial life? Do those first. Say yes to those first. Everything else can fit in around it. Versus, if you've never seen the study, if you put the water in, then the sand, then the pebbles, then the rocks, it won't all fit, okay? Do it in the right order. That's how budgeting can work for you. The second thing that I would tell you traditional budgeting doesn't work is does a terrible job helping you manage non-monthly expenses. We call this the 3 bank account system, and that second bank account is your delayed spending. It's not immediate spending. Immediate spending is that first bucket, and that is the, all right, money's coming in, and then I've got regular monthly expenses. Some of them are fixed, mortgage, your car insurance, your car payment, that sort of stuff. I know the exact amount every single month. It might change a little bit, but not on a month-to-month basis, okay? And then you've got your variable expenses. Going out to eat, grocery store, gas, those things, they're going to come up every single month. The amounts may vary a little bit. But then you also have, and most people ignore this or they pretend it doesn't exist or they say, well, these things happen all the time and so it's just got to be part of the monthly budget. No, you have your regular but non-monthly expenses. The things that are going to come up every quarter or once a year or every couple of years, like replacing the tires on your vehicle or taking a vacation or buying gifts for family members or your spouse, something like that. Car insurance or life insurance. Some people pay, once a year. What about medical deductibles, that sort of thing. So these are expenses that are going to come up. You are going to spend this money. It's just not going to fit in a monthly budget because it doesn't happen every single month. I think that also, I've just seen, that also just crowds out. If you budget for all of your normal monthly expenses, how do you budget for the things that don't show up every single month? That's delayed spending. You need to categorize all those non-monthly expenses, add them all up, divide them by 12, and make that part of your budget. Setting money aside for these non-monthly expenses so that when they come up, they don't break your monthly budget. Third, most folks that are budgeting don't have sort of accountability. They don't have a coach, and this could sound really awful, right? But most people don't tune into their budget enough, and then they're not reviewing it with someone to make sure that they're on track doing the right things, okay? So to me, that's another reason why just a budgeting app is not going to change your behavior, because you're not going to spend as much time in it. It's just an app, automated. It's going to do the calculations for you. And then second, you're not going to review that with someone where someone is making sure, hey, are you still putting the big rocks in first? Are you prioritizing your cash flow correctly? Making sure that you're saying yes to the right things so that everything else will fit in around it. That accountability, but that coaching comes from your certified financial planner and reviewing this and working on your budget with them. And then finally, I would mention, for those of us that really struggle with constraint and restraint within some of those key areas like grocery shopping or grocery store or shopping, those sorts of things, consider adding in some pre-commitment. So some maybe envelope system, right? Where you're actually using cash and setting it aside, pulling it out of the checking account, putting it in an envelope and saying, this is what I've pre-committed, this is my limit, this will help me make sure I'm spending within my means, right? That as everything has gotten more automated and it's just much easier. Some places, even with COVID, they don't even want to take cash anymore. That is an area, that's a mechanism to help you manage your spending. So, budgets actually work. I've told you before, one of the very first Wise Money videos out there ever is budgets don't work, okay? Yeah, they don't in and of themselves. They don't. You've got to work with a coach. You've got to add a 3 bank account system. You've got to account for other things and maybe apply some other kind of pre-commitment, some other restraints in there as well. All in all, work with your certified financial planner to see how this fits for you. Budgets are like diets. There isn't one that works for everyone. Okay, there is not. So you've got to work with your certified financial planner, figure out what those big yeses are, prioritize it, work a 3 bank account system, and get the right overall budgeting system in place for you. If you don't have a CFP on your team, you can contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with a K. WiseMoneyShow.com. You can find us there as well. You can also email us at info@Korhorn.com. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.